Hello guys, Fenchurch here, and welcome back to some more Faeria. I've been absolutely loving this game recently, been playing it loads, and I thought why not show you guys some of the decks that I use in ranked gameplay. So here we are. I've got a few more of these decks up my sleeve, so if you enjoy this video, if you find it helpful, please make sure to like, to comment, to subscribe, and that'll give me some good feedback as to whether I should do more of these. So basically this deck is a flying mono deck. It's got some good combos in it, and I'm going to go through all the cards here with you just to show you what they are and to kind of explain how to use them, at least how I use them anyway. So Desert Twister, teleport a creature to a desert you control. This is good for things like taunts. If you've got a lot of creatures around your enemy's orb, and he places a taunt down, meaning you can't attack it, you can use this card to basically remove the taunt, bring it to wherever else on the board, and that allows you to use the damage. But it's not just in the orb, it can be used anywhere else on the board as well. Windborn just kind of gives that bit of surprise damage. Maybe your enemy's got a creature that's 2 tiles away, and he thinks it's safe. You buff your creature with this and then take it out. This one is good for plenty of things, but just for kind of plonking it at a Faeria well and collecting Faeria all game. It can be good for putting it up right next to your enemy's orb and just doing 2 damage every turn without him being able to take it out, unless he has a spell or some kind of like gift that your creature can do, like deal 1 damage. There's some red decks that have things like that. Soul Drain is just great for taking out lower health creatures, and also gives you that little bit extra survivability if you've taken some damage. Sunsilk Fairy is a really good value card if you draw an event and get it to the 4/2 with charge. It's got good board coverage, so if your enemy can't take it out, you've kind of got access to a lot of different things to use it for, and it's flying, so you don't need to move it across land, which is like excellent. Golden Aviary is again good for a little bit of that surprise damage. If you've got a lot of creatures out on the board and they're maybe being outranked in health, or you just need that a little bit extra damage to finish off your opponent, you just plonk this down and deal that extra damage. Windborn Emissary. So actually what we're going to look for first is the Drakar Sky Captain, and basically this is the card that you want. Either of these cards, the Air Elemental or Drakar Sky Captain. Man, I'm getting muddled with my words here. You want these cards first. When you get your draw of cards right at the start and you don't have either of these two, you should redraw every single time. Basically the Drakar Sky Captain, whenever you draw a flying creature, it gains +1/+1. So get these out as soon as possible. There has been occasions where I've had all 3 of these on the board at once and my enemy's not been able to take it out because it's been so early in the game. And then every time you draw a flying card, which is basically a flying creature, which is basically every creature in this game, in this deck. So whenever you draw one, it gains +1/+1 per each one of these cards that you've got out. So that just gives you a massive advantage. Free health, free damage, and yeah, it's just really good for value and for trading with other enemies. The reason the Air Elemental is good to start with is, as you can see up here, the Desert Twister requires 5 desert, and everything else is 2 or 1, but the Air Elemental is good just to place it down straight away, get that extra desert out, and if you can do that, you know, a couple of times, it's just good for building land on your side, protecting yourself, or heading towards your enemy. You could always place 2 neutral lands, then place the Air Elemental on one of your deserts, and then place the new desert at the end of the neutral ones you just created if you're pushing towards your enemy, for example. So, back to everything else now. The Windborn Emissary, you don't want that straight away simply because it has +2/+0 while you control another flying creature. So it's good to get out a bit later on in the game, especially if you've got buffs going like Golden Aviary and the Drakar Sky Captain has buffed it when you drew it, then this is just going to be a crazy card for them to deal with. Choking Sand is a great card. Destroy a creature with 3 or less attack, and sometimes you're maybe not trading up mana wise. It costs 4 mana, sometimes you'd be destroying a creature that's 3 mana or even sometimes 2 mana. but it's still a great card just to keep your minions on the board and get rid of something that's annoying you, whether it be a taunt or whatever it is. It's just good for removal. Dune Drake is also a brilliant card. It's got charge 2, which allows you that extra bit of reach, and you can't gather Faeria, but that's not such a problem because of its value in health and attack. And if you can get a couple buffs on this as well, that just makes it all the better. Callum's Skyguard can be summoned anywhere adjacent to a friendly creature, so this is good for a number of things. Maybe if your opponent is using a rush deck, he places one of his lands right next to your orb, and you have a creature next to that land. You can place this creature on his land when you summon it, or in the other event, if you're at his orb, you've only got one land, and then you can place this with a creature on it, and you can place this anywhere basically. It doesn't have to be on your land, it doesn't have to be on land at all, it can be over the ocean, but it's just a good card for things like that. Although with the 3 health it can be taken out by some red creatures that deal 3 damage when they've been summoned. Last Nightmare, another great card to have in your deck. Don't use it, I mean you have to be careful when you use it, is what I'm trying to say. It's good for removing things like legendary minions that cause a lot of trouble. If your opponent puts a lot of buffs into one creature, thinking that you don't have something like Last Nightmare to remove it with, then this is can be a good value card for things like that. So Azari, Wrath of the Desert, it can be a good card if your enemy doesn't have any removal handy. This can be an insane card, especially if you place it right up next to your opponent's orb. Gift, which means that it activates as soon as you place it. Azari drains 2 attack from each enemy creature. So if your opponent has a lot of enemies on the board, quite often when I've placed this, they've only had 2 or 3 attacks. Even if they have more than that, it's just great for reducing the attack ability of all your enemies' creatures. But this it steals 2 attack from each enemy creature, so even like, if it took 2 creatures, 2 attacks, that's like a 10-6, which is like crazy. If your opponent can't remove that and you've got that right next to his orb, then he's in serious trouble. So that's a good card for that, but I don't recommend placing that down early game. It's good for kind of mid to late game. Even if you are trading it with a few creatures, then that's still okay. So that's the deck explained. It is mono desert, as I said, so that's just all desert, no other colours or factions. So let's get into the gameplay. I'll show you this deck in an actual game and show you how it performs. So you can see right from the start we got our Drakar Sky Captain, so that's going to be the card that I aim to get out first. Just building some deserts towards the Faeria wells at the side there. Looks like my opponent is playing Forest, so probably not a rush deck. It's probably going to be one with bigger creatures in it, which should hopefully mean good trades for me. But we'll see about that. Got a second Drakar Sky Captain, which is great. That first one's been buffed, as you can see. It's a 3/5. I'm not going to be able to place that immediately next to a well, but that's not a massive problem. I'll just leave it on the other side for just now, and we can work on buffing my new creatures that I draw. Yep, that is my opponent building up his creature. He's right next to my other Sky Captain there, so I'm just going to move him out of the way of danger until I can deal with his card, and I'm going to build some land towards my opponent on the other side because he seems to be pushing on the left there. So one thing that's really important is not only the deck that you have, the cards that you have and how you use them, but how you place your land is very important. If you don't place your land correctly, you essentially, I mean, you know, you could lose the game even though you have a better deck. So I'm kind of forcing my opponent to place his forests and his creatures closer to him by pushing forwards a little bit. He's putting all his buffs into that taunt there, and he has moved his creature further towards mine. So I opted to draw a card this turn, and I'm just going to take his creature away that's next to my, or close to my orb there. Move this one over so it's got easy access to both those orbs, and we're just going to trade for those because it's a threat basically, and he might be able to take out my my large health and attack minion there next turn. Would have been handy to have had a last nightmare last turn though, and then I could have pushed a bit further forwards there. That's a good example of how to use that 6/5 card there. Dropped it over ocean, doesn't have to be over land like I said, and I protected my creature, and it trades well with his 4/4 there, but he's buffed it anyway. 7/1. I can still take that out. Oh no, can I? Actually, is that next turn? I don't remember. Okay, so I just going for mana here just now. I can afford to push this guy forwards because, well, I probably should have used that on the 7/1, but I could have still traded my 2/4 for his 2/2. That's pretty much perfect. Soul Drain's going to take out the 7/1. I can gain some extra mana there and push more towards his orb whilst protecting my creatures. He's only got the one creature out just now, so I've definitely got an advantage in terms of creature placement, and that's a perfect example of what Last Nightmare would be used for. He's tried to push that right next to my orb. It's got big buffs on it. There's no way for him to deal with my advances just now. I'm just going to take out his large creature, and I've got another Last Nightmare just handy there in case he has another large creature. I'm going to keep picking up the mana, and I'm going to keep pushing towards his orb. He's low on mana, he's low on cards, and we have a creature advantage, so this is looking good for us just now. Just moving my other Jakar Sky Captain over to the side of the board there for easy access to the mana wells. Means I can reach all 4 of them in one turn, which is very good. That gives me a good value trade there. I can collect some more mana, I can destroy his 5/5 and keep pushing at his orb. He is in serious trouble now. He has no mana wells under control. I've got all 4. And I have a creature advantage, and I have a health advantage, and a card advantage. He's just trying to protect his orb with some creatures there. Collect all the mana that I can. These guys, I don't want them to die because they buff every flying creature that comes out. So I'm just going to use them for mana collection. That's maybe not a perfect trade, but it gets rid of his creature, and it means I can drop one of the Callum Skyguards right next to his orb, which is perfect. Basically every creature that comes out just now is great value, and then you can see just concedes. So thanks for watching guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, and I'll see you next time.